Good evening here on the East Coast, where it's 6 o'clock Eastern Time. You're watching DeProgram on YouTube and Rumble with me, editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, and CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou. Thank you so much for joining us. Please watch, follow, and share the show. Things are growing and moving along nicely thanks to you guys. And as always, we appreciate your questions in both the feeds of YouTube and Rumble. So pipe in anytime and we will interact and we'll answer and all that stuff. But you guys already know that if you're a regular. Today we're going to be talking about the Diddy trial. We called it. It came down the way we called it. It came down the way we thought it would. We're going to get into that. Elon Musk wants the one thing that, do we really need? We need a third party. Yes, we do. But he wants it to be a centrist party. Maybe we'll talk about whether that's important. The Dalai Lama's 90th birthday is today. He's announced that he's going to handle the reincarnation aspect himself, and that it's going to be someone from outside of China, so it'll be from somewhere else. We'll get into actually the peculiarities of that are very interesting if you haven't followed it. And even if you had, new Gallup poll shows that only 58% of American adults are actually still proud to be an American. That's down from 67%. Kind of funny considering that we are under a president who wants to make America great again. Maybe fewer Americans feel that they're great than they did under Joe Biden. We'll get into who that is and why that's happening and whether we should care about it. Finally, there's a new book called the CIA Book Club. This is obviously right up your alley, John, and I know you've written about this. Back during the Cold War, there was a covert program to smuggle Le Carré books, Cosmo magazines, copies of 1984, and Brave New World and other stuff into the Soviet bloc, into the Eastern Bloc. So that's a funny story. I love stories like that. So let's just get into the Diddy trial. So basically, we both had tremendous doubts every time we've talked about it, that the government had any kind of case whatsoever when it came to sex trafficking. And apparently the jury of 12 New Yorkers, good and true, agreed with us. And they rejected that. They were deadlocked on that issue. And then basically they came down, they found Diddy guilty basically of soliciting a prostitute across state lines,
right?
Two prostitutes across state lines. That could be something as inane as you hired a New Jersey prostitute to come to Long Island in New York. That's a violation of something called the Mann Act.
That's right.
So basically, I did some research. Where things currently stand is that Diddy's asking to be released on $1 million bail. The judge is considering whether to do that. And the judge seemed playfully almost open to that. He said, what, you don't want to stay at the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center? And he was like, no, please. Diddy seemed pretty happy about this. But when I looked it up, he is likely to receive, if found guilty, he has been found guilty on the two counts, up to 7 to 10 years in federal prison for the Mann Act violations, even though he has no criminal record whatsoever. This is his first offense. John, that seems pretty harsh for a guy who kind of wasn't found guilty of a hell of a lot compared to what they charged him with.
Yeah, it's harsh. This is actually kind of a complicated issue. The Justice Department has something called a sentencing schedule, and it's very complicated. It goes from left to right, from 1 to 10, and then up and down from 1 to 40. So across from 1 to 10 is how much of a career criminal you are. He would be 1 because he doesn't have any previous convictions. And then on the left column from 1 to 40, with 1 being, jaywalking on a federal reservation and 40 being your El Chapo, seriously, and that's the death penalty.
Right.
He's going to be somewhere in the mid-20s. The Mann Act is not one of the more, serious crimes, although the Justice Department always describes every crime that they prosecute as exceptionally grave, right?
Right.
They said that about me. They said that about General Flynn, exceptionally grave crime. It's like, no, it's not.
They always lay it on so thick, right? And it's like I think they're losing credibility that way. It's like, it's like my son drives me crazy because he leaves the lights on. And he's like, does it really cost that much money? I'm like, not really. Lights don't cost that much money. It just drives me crazy because I grew up during the energy crisis.
Me too. I always turn them off.
I try to earn points that way by telling the truth.
So if you look at the sentencing schedule, he's probably going to get more like 3.5 to 5. He'll be out before you know it. And he'll
time off for good behavior. Yeah.
Time off, 15% off for good behavior. He qualifies for up to 6 months of house arrest. This is going to be easy. And because it's not a violent crime.
Does the time that he spent awaiting trial count towards his sentencing?
Oh, yes. Every day of it.
So that probably went into the calculus as well, because he kind of basically stopped trying to get out. The bail, as thank you to Deanna and Reed S., who both piped into the chat to let us know that bail had been denied. That was expected.
Yes.
It was not likely that he was going to get out, given the grave seriousness of the
nature
crime.
of the crime. Yes.
I mean, I guess this is the problem with the prosecutors, right? They're always rewarded for overcharging.
Always.
Honestly, they should have been bitch slapped for trying such a ridiculous move on the.
Couldn't agree more.
Right. I mean, the jury should have nullified and just been like.
And remember when they first started this, they were raiding his house at 6 o'clock in the morning with armored personnel carriers. Right. Like, what
didn't they bring a battering ram and they terrorized his family?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So he's going to be in and out before you know it.
By the way, 50 Cent, with whom he famously has beef, tweeted that he was the what was the name of the guy? Oh yeah, he's the gay John Gotti. Praising him, for having gotten over on the feds. They called him like, congratulations, you're the gay John Gotti.
Oh man.
Pretty funny.
Oh yeah. He's going to be in a minimum security work camp. This time is going to be very easy. His biggest problem is going to be boredom, and it's going to be keeping the autograph seekers away. But yeah, this is going to be easy time.
So he'll be out in 3 years, shall we say?
I would venture to guess. Yeah.
It'll only help his street cred.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, he's supposed to be big gangster. Now he can actually say he's done hard time.
It's a career move.
Yeah.
Look at
50 Cent was like shot like 9 times. That was his cred, Well, I mean, he actually was a gangster.
Right.
So now Diddy can say he's done time.
Yeah, Diddy was kind of my neighbor because I lived in East Hampton, and I used to see him all the time on Newtown Lane, which is the main drag in East Hampton, in his white suit. And, I remember just thinking like, that guy doesn't look hard.
No.
No, not at all. He was a businessman.
Reed says, let's talk about the lead prosecutor, Moren Comey, the daughter of James Comey, and how incompetent she's been. Man, you can say that again. But I say this all the time, and I don't mean to sound like bitter or whatever, but this is how these clowns get promoted. They don't get promoted by not prosecuting you. They don't get promoted by not charge stacking you. They all want to end up either in the corner office at the big law firm or running for Congress or governor. And she thought this would be easy. She's going to be famous. If she can put Diddy in prison for the rest of his life, she's going to be famous. And her dad's famous, and she can run for any office she wants or make $10 million a year as a rainmaker for some big law firm. And it didn't work out for her. But that's what they do.
I hate that.
I do too.
I really do. I mean, I feel like honestly, the rules or the law or something should be rewritten so that prosecutors should get penalized for wasting the taxpayers' time and money, wasting the jurors' time and money. I just got a jury notice the other day. Here it is right here, right? It's like,
oh man.
It's like, so I'm like, okay, now granted, they do pay $72 cash American for every day of your time.
Wow.
Which is better than it used to be.
Oh, we're $20 here.
Oh God. I was kind of surprised it was as high as 72.
That surprises me.
But the point is, I'm like, this is like, I don't want to be dragged in when there's real crimes in this city and this state to talk to for some nonsense like this. I mean, granted, Diddy's guilty of being a dick bean, but he's not, he's really just sex trafficking, really. I don't know.
Sex trafficking. All
right. Well, so we'll follow the story when we have the sentencing, but I think we know where this is all going to go because, as you said, John, this is it's a formula. They plug it into a spreadsheet, literally, right? Is my understanding.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, so let's get into Elon Musk is threatening that if Trump's big, beautiful omnibus spending and tax cut package passes, which it surely looks like it will, that he wants to introduce a third party. So the two lady senators, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who always threaten, we're going to stand up to Trump. This cannot stand. As usual, they roll.
And then they cave.
They always cave. Lisa Murkowski's excuse was, they gave me good shit for Alaska. I'm like, aren't you a senator for the entire country?
Right.
But
right. She had a meeting with John Thune day before yesterday, and he promised her the kitchen sink to take back to Alaska. She said, okay, I'm good.
Ridiculous. I mean, just ridiculous. And plus, when you're that old, why do you still care? Why aren't you just sort of like, fuck you, I'm doing it my way? But all right. Anyway, so now this bill is almost certainly going to pass, right? I mean, we don't know about the details. It's like, the restive members of the Freedom Caucus are going to hold out because, against the raising of the deficit to $40 trillion.
They're all
not
phonies. No, they're not.
It's going to pass. It's going to pass. They wanted to pass it by July 4th. I assume they're not going to be voting on the 4th. They want to kick off to for the holiday. So they'll do this late tomorrow night, and it'll get done. Elon Musk said the very next day he wanted to start to finance a new third party. He wants to call it the America Party. Hate the name. But he wants it to be, as you pointed out, a centrist party. That's always that dream, right? You read it in the op-ed pages of the New York Times. Tom Friedman's always saying shit like this. What the world needs is more centrism, common sense, like the middle of the country we're all at. Two things. First of all, there are two centrist parties already, right?
Yeah,
Democrats
exactly. There's a right of center party and a more right of center party.
But that's also not where the country is.
No.
The voters are over in the far right in the MAGA movement or on the far left in the progressive Mamdani side of things. The truth is there's really four parties in the country, right? There's progressive Democrats, corporate Republicans, and populist Republicans.
That's it. You're exactly right.
Populist Republicans can probably do some, they can do some work with the progressive Democrats sometimes because everyone's on Team America first there. Foreign interventionism, no. The corporatists can get together and start wars against brown people. That's kind of how that works. But I don't know let's talk about third parties. I think we can stipulate, yes, Elon, we could use a third party, right?
Sure. Just not his third party. The Washington Post today was just going on and on and on about third parties. They always fail. Ross Perot financed his own third party, the Unity Party in 1992 and again in 96.
Oh, no, the Reform Party.
Reform Party. That's right. That's right. The Reform Party. And he won 19% and 0 electoral votes. It's like, but that wasn't the point. The point was to try to create something that people could gravitate toward. Then
by the way, John, we will never know what would have happened in 1992 if Perot hadn't dropped out mid-campaign. He claimed that there were threats against his daughter's wedding.
That's
right.
And
so he pulled out of the race.
That's exactly
right. Something, we don't know if that was really true. Then he came back into the race maybe a month or two later. And we don't know why he made that decision either. But the point is that was the reason given. 19.2% is
a lot.
Pretty fucking impressive
for
a third-party candidate, especially considering that disruption. And it was a guy that most Americans had never heard of before, like a year or two before the election.
I'm sure you remember the 1980 election. I do. I was in high school. John Anderson, 7%. John Anderson was a liberal Republican congressman from Illinois, when there used to be liberal Republicans. He said that Ronald Reagan was too conservative and Jimmy Carter was a failed president. So he ran nationwide, got 7%, which was very respectable. Without a party. He ran just as an independent with no party behind him. That was in 1980. Then you had Ross Perot in 92 and 96 and Ralph Nader in 2000, who ran with the party behind him.
Right.
But history has viewed him as simply a spoiler, which I think is unfair.
Incorrectly. I mean, because basically,
incorrectly, yes.
Because usually what happens with third parties is that they bring in new voters who are alienated from the D's and the R's and wouldn't vote at all. I mean,
that is right. But then go back, Ted. Go back to 68 and 72.
George
68
Wallace.
being George Wallace, who actually won 6 states across the South. He didn't change the outcome. Nixon was going to win that race anyway, but he carried 6 states. Well, what Elon Musk is talking.
1948 was a big year for third parties. You had Strom Thurmond, the Dixiecrat Party, officially known as the States' Rights Party.
That is exactly right.
And then you also had Henry Wallace, the former vice president for FDR, for the Progressive Party. And
a hero of mine.
And you can keep going back. There's a sort of a lame third party run in 1932 that people forgot. This guy John Lemney. There's a very impressive 1924 run by Robert Lafayette.
Yes, that was a serious run.
Yeah, it was, and he was a serious man.
Yeah,
not an attractive man.
No,
he looked like he'd been run over by several very heavy cars.
And what about Father Coughlin? Later on in 36.
Right. Now that was there was no one who was going to beat FDR after the New Deal.
No, sir.
Alf Landon was just a sacrificial lamb for the GOP. But you also, I think the most storied run of the 20th century had to be Theodore Roosevelt in 1912.
Without a doubt. Yeah, the Bull Moose Party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he suffered an assassination attempt. He was shot. I love this story. He was.
There's a whole book about it.
It's a great story. He was a long-winded dude, right? And so the custom at the time was that you typed up the speech was handwritten or typed in big type. You folded it up in sheaves. You kept it folded in half inside your pocket of your suit jacket. You pulled them out as you needed them, and as you finished them, you threw it on the ground. And fortunately for him, it happened toward the shot happened at the beginning of his speech.
Yep.
The bullet lodged in the text of the speech.
Text.
It was slowed down. And he
got shot. Yeah, legitimately shot.
The bullet did penetrate his skin, but it didn't go. It was slowed down by the voluminous speech. So, this is not the time you want a Joe Biden style, hit it and quit it, 7 minutes. You want that big speech. But anyway, and he got up and he said it takes more than that to bring down a bull moose. And
he finished the speech.
Yeah, he hour and 45 minutes later.
And then went to the hospital.
What a Mac Daddy.
Tough, man. Really tough.
And then, it was like when he lost, he's like, fuck it. I'll go traipse around the Amazon.
And that almost killed him.
Yeah. Well, it ultimately did.
Yeah. That's why his life was so short. He died in his 50s.
Yeah, it was malaria, right?
Yes.
He was almost left for dead several times.
Yes.
God, I love Theodore Roosevelt. To me, he's a god.
Oh my gosh, I agree. It was only because his son was on that expedition. His son insisted they not just leave him there to die.
Yes.
That even if they had to carry him, physically
he
carry him.
He wanted to be left to die. Leave me behind.
Yeah, and never fully recovered.
No, not at all. No,
he's a bona fide American hero, I think.
Yeah, and my favorite part about him is he invited the big muckraking left-wing journalist Lincoln Steffens into the White House, and he gave him a letter that said, to whom it may concern, please allow Mr. Steffens to see any file he wants to see anytime, unrestricted, and attend any meeting that he wants up to and including a cabinet meeting without notice. Roosevelt wanted total transparency to his bitterest critic.
Wow.
a true patriot, true American, no question.
True American.
Obviously, there's lots of things to criticize. Human beings are complicated. He started us on the road to empire, sadly and tragically.
He did. That is true. But getting back to your initial point about Elon Musk, he wants to use his own money to jam another party down the throats of the American people and say it's a centrist party. Well, how many centrist parties do we possibly need? And the way this came up,
got one too many as it is.
Yeah, seriously. The way this came up was Justin Amash, who used to be one of these libertarian Republican congressmen from Michigan, tweeted at Musk a couple of days ago, "Are you going to help Thomas Massie, who Trump has promised to primary?" And Musk tweeted back, "Yes." That was all he said. Yes. Next thing you know, we got another party, and he's going to be dumping money into Thomas Massie's campaign. I'll tell you something about Thomas Massie. I actually know him relatively well. He's a good friend of Bruce Fine. Bruce is one of my best friends. And we've gone to a half a dozen baseball games together, the three of us, and his chief of staff, who's a great guy. Massie is one of the most down-to-earth, normal guys that you're ever going to encounter. And he believes strongly in the Constitution, in the inviolability of the Constitution. And he's not going to take shit from anybody, even if their name is Donald Trump. He doesn't take his marching orders from Mike Johnson, and he's not going to take them from Donald Trump. And if he was elected to, say, oppose deficit spending or to oppose increases to the national debt, then by God, that's what he's going to stand for. And that's why they hate him.
Good for him.
Yeah.
God help you if you have principles. You're not Susan Collins.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about we should talk a little bit about the practicalities of starting a third party. So, I mean, in my view, one of the biggest flaws in most third party, the history of third parties in this country, has been a failure to have a lot of down ballot candidates. Now, granted, that makes it more complicated. It's sexier to start with the presidency, but with the presidency, the Constitution is not on your side. You have to get 270 electoral votes to win, and if you let's say you win a plurality of the vote, like 40 to 30 to 30. You can win a majority, but you probably won't get to 270. And then it's going to go to the House of Representatives, and the majority party there, the Democrats or the Republicans, are going to just vote their guy in, and you're not going to get in even if you won the election. So it's really just almost impossible now for a presidential candidate. But what if we started at the grassroots? I mean, I keep thinking of what the GOP did after Goldwater and the GOP was defeated brutally in 1964. Yes. They decided to start at the school board level, the trash collector, dog catcher level.
And this is a lesson the Democrats never learned.
The school board and like city councils all over the country, and they ran for 2 out of 3 races in this country are unopposed currently. For state rep and all sorts of stuff like that. So you could find local people. Some of those people would win. There's not much of a history of this actually happening, right? No. I mean, even the old Socialist Party under Eugene Debs, they had like a few mayors in Madison, Wisconsin,
and that was it.
Like that. But that was it.
That was pretty much it. Ted, I'll tell you a funny story. When I got out of prison, while I was in prison, I had great support from Governor Gary Johnson, former Republican governor of New Mexico, who went on to be the Libertarian nominee for president in 2012 and 2016. So he and I were writing back and forth when I was in prison. And when I got out, he asked if I would travel with him to 12 Western states. So I did, and I introduced him at each of these campaign stops. So I got invited to the 2016 Libertarian Party Christmas party. And of course, being libertarians, they can never get their acts together. The Christmas party was held at the end of January of 2017 because they just couldn't get their act together. So I'm standing there in this townhouse in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia. We all have these "Hello, my name is" tags on, and this guy sees my name, and he says, "Oh, John Kiriakou, I've been looking for you. I'm so-and-so. I'm the head of the Libertarian Party for Virginia. Would you like to run for governor of Virginia?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Really? Why?" I said, "Look, I like you guys. You're all fun, but you just can't get your act together." Yep. And I would run for governor of Virginia. I would end up being out of pocket because you can't raise any money. I'll get 1%, and then I'm going to humiliate myself.
Right.
And he's like, well,
and at some point when you start to run, you can't help but think, but what if I could win?
I know, right?
You start to like get
listen.
It's like buying a lotto ticket.
Gary and I were in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and he said to me, "Hey, my sister's going to meet us for dinner. She lives here in Kalamazoo, and she's running for Congress as a libertarian." So I said, "Oh, cool." So we go out to dinner, and I'm sitting next to her, and she was absolutely lovely, right? And there just happened to be a poll that was released that day that showed that whoever the incumbent Republican was underwater in terms of approval. And like more, when I say underwater, I mean more people disliked him than liked him. But it was such a Republican district that he just kept winning every 2 years. So I said, "Oh, did you see this poll today? It showed that Congressman, I forget his name, 40% of the people like him and 60% of the people dislike him." And she goes like this. She goes, "I could actually win this thing." And I thought to myself, "Oh, you poor thing." Yeah. She ended up getting 2%. 2%.
Yeah.
Let me make one more point about the libertarians. And this is so typical of the libertarians. I get these hair on fire emails, these breathless emails. "Oh my God, we just elected a guy to the City Water Board of Anchorage, Alaska. Let's hear it for Steve, everybody. Steve, he's the latest elected libertarian." I'm like, people, do you listen to yourselves? He's on the City Water Board of Anchorage, Alaska. Like, I mean, why aren't there libertarians running for every single state legislative seat in America? As well as school board and, all these other local, prothonotary and the clerk of courts and whatever.
Well, the mean person would say, "John, you're an example. You didn't want to run for governor."
Hey, Rita has a comment. "If Eric Cantor can be primaried, please humor me while I tell you my Eric Cantor story."
Okay.
Eric and I were in college together. I was the president of the college Democrats, and he was the president of the college Republicans. And so what the college Democrats did one year was we decided to run people for every single student Senate race. And we won like 2/3 of the seats. So the student Senate controlled the budget for university clubs. So the college Democrats always got $5,000, and the college Republicans always got $5,000, and we would use that to pay honoraria for speakers. Mm-hmm. Back then, senators and congressmen could accept money, so you had to pay them to give speeches. So I said, "Hey, let's fuck Eric and the college Republicans, right? We're supposed to be so partisan, and they've got Reagan on their side, and they always bring these racists to campus. They brought these crazy, I forget their names, the Minutemen. The Minutemen they would bring to the.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was bad. So we won 2/3 of the seats, and Eric came in for his budget talk, and he's like, "Yeah, we're asking for 5,500 this year. We've had 5,000 in the last 3 years." We gave him $100. And by the time he got up to walk out, he was crying. And I shouted at him, "Big baby," as he left. Okay, so we graduate. I go to grad school. I join the agency. I come back home in like 96, I guess it was. I come back from my first overseas tour, and I see Eric Cantor is elected to Congress for Richmond, Virginia. I was like, that can't be the Eric Cantor that I went to school with. And there he was. And next thing you know, he's going to be Speaker of the House. until he gets primaried. But he got rich beyond his wildest dreams. But I'm proud to say I made Eric Cantor cry.
That's actually hilarious. Yeah, I love those weird little connections. You know, I mean, when I went to Columbia, I sort of found out after the fact that I had crossed paths with Obama. Because he spent so Obama graduated 2 years before me, and my sophomore year I lived in this dorm called BHR at Columbia, Brooks Hewitt Reed, and the Black Students Organization was in that building. It was on the ground floor. I had one of the few rooms that was on the ground floor. It was across the hall from the BSO, and there was this funny looking, good looking, but funny, unusual looking guy, black guy, with a fro, who always wore basketball clothes. I assumed he was a basketball scholarship student because I never saw anyone. You know, Columbia has no school spirit. Nobody wears sports.
Neither
anything,
did GW.
Ever.
No.
So anyway, the thing is, I remember but I have this weird memory. Like if I see you on the subway one time, I'll remember your face forever. But if I've met you like 16 times at like a cartooning convention and I've been introduced to you and I know your name, I'll never remember your name. But I'll remember I'll be like, I know that guy. I know where I saw him, met him. So anyway, I have a photographic memory for a face. I remember one time I'm walking by and I hear this guy being dressed down by the president of the BSO. And he's like, Barry, you come around here looking for pussy, but you never put up. You have no balls. You don't come to any of the protests. You don't have any guts. You don't throw down. We're all getting arrested over the divestment thing. Don't come around here until you figure out who you are.
Wow.
Years later, I read in like Time magazine about this up and coming young legislator in Illinois. And there's a picture of him from college. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Barry.
Oh my God.
That's Barry. So it's just really, really funny.
That's a good story.
When you have those connections, you know.
I got one more short one.
Let's hear it.
When I was in college and grad school, I worked for the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union. The international headquarters is down here at 18th and K Street. And they treated me like a king. I made lifelong friends at the UFCW. My boss's boss was a guy named Marv Rubish. Marv was one of the finest human beings I've ever known. Died very young of a heart attack, died at 46. And I still think about him all the time. But anyway, when I first started working at the union, I was a freshman or a sophomore. And Marv would just give me make work jobs because he liked me. And we both collected political buttons. And he had his all hanging in his office in this big case. So Marv said to me one day, I want to introduce you to another one of the interns. He said, this kid is going places. You're going to need to know each other. He says, John, I want you to meet Rahm Emanuel. Rahm, this is John Kiriakou. I said, hi, nice to meet you. Started working with Rahm Emanuel. And I told my best friend from college, I'm working with this guy. He's a total dick.
Oh, totally.
At the union. I said, I mean, I so dislike this guy. All he talks about is how he's going to be the first Jewish president. He won't shut the fuck up, you know? And then one day he's just not there anymore. So I said to Marv, I said, what happened to Rahm? And he said, he got too big for us. He's doing an internship at the DNC. And I was like, fuck him. I hope I never see him again. And then again, I get on with my life. I graduate. I do a graduate degree. I join the CIA. Next thing I start hearing is Rahm Emanuel, new congressman from Chicago. And then he's the mayor of Chicago and the White House chief of staff and the ambassador to Japan. It's like, you got to be kidding me. And now he's going to run for president in 28. I never could stand to even be around that guy. Oh my God! I
got Rahm Emanuel was when he was just a congressman came to speak to the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists. And we used to try to bring people who we had Joe Arpaio before he was anybody when we were in Phoenix, and we tried to get people who were like up and coming. And like the host of the convention was like, "Oh, you got to know about this guy. He's an operator." Blah blah blah. I remember. He was pre-Rahm, right? This was pre-Rahm.
Right.
And we were all like, okay, he's the smartest motherfucker ever. And we were all like left, middle, right. We were all like, what an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Like colossal.
The guy's just insufferable. Yeah. Insufferable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Star Lion says his brother's probably more powerful, without any question. I met
No
his
doubt.
brother. I met his brother back in like 2010. He actually repped another friend of mine from college who ended up becoming an multiple Emmy winning comedy writer, Alan Cohen. And Alan introduced me. Lovely guy. I'm sure a lot of it was fake, but at least he knew how to play it. And Ram is just not a good guy. And he's already started raising money for 2028.
That's crazy. Speaking of, he will never be the first Jewish president.
Never.
200 years overdue for the first Jewish president, but it's not going to be him.
No.
It's like,
no.
If there's any God at all, it will not be him.
No, sir.
No, that's ridiculous.
Another Zionist corporate Democrat. No, thank you.
Oh, I mean, not to mention, Israel is going to, by then, it's going to be as popular as herpes. It's already like at rock bottom popularity.
Got that right.
There's no way. It's never coming back. The bloom is off the rose. Wow.
And the Clinton years are
tell you my
over.
Stephanopoulos story.
Tell me.
Ran against him for class president, but that's a whole.
Did you really?
Yeah, he kind of cheated, and then he turned up like as a big figure. We had, long story short, both ran for class president. You're not supposed to campaign like with posters and stuff up before a certain point. Yes. He's like, fuck it. He did it. He had professional like ephemera in it. And he turns up as like a big deal on national television. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happens when, you're old college guys.
Yeah.
I don't care where you go. That's just going to happen.
Some people move on to the fast track for better or for worse. There they are.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're sitting there watching the news saying, you have got to be kidding me.
I know. It's really true. There's only a few times where I've just like been like, oh, like I'm happy that happened. It's very rare though.
Very rare.
Usually it's the assholes who rise.
I will say I was Jared Leto's high school government and history teacher. I wrote him a letter of recommendation to film school. And then he went on to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. So I'm proud of Jared. He did well.
That's good. All right. So it's not all bad. Not all bad at all. All right. Let's talk about the Dalai Lama. So the Dalai Lama thing is very funny, right? So basically, the Dalai Lama, So I want a little background here, right? Correct me if I get any of the details here wrong, because it is complicated. But Tibet has always been a vassal state of China. At times, it's been an independent vassal state. In other words, it had its own governance, its own autonomous culture. It always had its own autonomous culture, but China did not directly control it. They paid tribute. And then whenever China has been more powerful, the empire has expanded and actually controlled it directly. When it was weaker, it's contracted. Taiwan's kind of in the same status. And so in the 1950s, Tibet was invaded directly by China following the communist revolution. The young Dalai Lama, there are many lamas, but the Dalai Lama is the lamiest of them all.
That's right.
He was a little kid. I can think he was like 9 or something like that. He fled into exile. He lives in northern India in this compound, which is basically like sort of Tibet, little Tibet in India.
Yes.
And he's been there ever since. Parenthetic, I have to make this joke, but I've always thought it. If you think you're going to be reincarnated, why are you afraid of the Chinese? I'd be like, it's whack-a-mole. Shoot me. I'll be back, fuckers. I don't care. Cut off my head. I'll be back there too.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly right.
But it's like, what are you afraid of? Anyway, he goes to, so he's been living there ever since. He's just celebrated his 90th birthday. And so he announced that his foundation will choose his successor, which is not really my understanding of Tibetan Buddhism.
Nope.
And that he will be born outside China. So in other words, in the 5/6 of the world population that doesn't live in China. I don't know how he determines that. Maybe we'll have like a little Buddha scenario where, maybe it'll be a kid from Connecticut or something. Who knows? And meanwhile, but China is not liking this. China is like, we own Tibet. It's a province of China. and they kind of have some legal support to back their position. Back in 1793, the Qing Dynasty issued something called the 29-article Ordinance for the more effective governing of Tibet. The Tibetans would say, we didn't have anything to do with that, but they say that the process for selecting all the high lamas, including the Dalai Lama, has to come from the central government, which is currently in Beijing.
Right.
China says that because they've established control over Tibet ever since 1950, that it's up to them to manage the reincarnation process, and that according to Chinese regulations, the Dalai Lama can't just decide this himself. The Chinese, this does sort of point to some sort of showdown. I don't know how that was going to manifest. I mean, you could end up with rival Dalai Lamas.
Yeah, I think we likely will end up with rival Dalai Lamas. This is not specific to the Chinese either. In Jerusalem, Jerusalem is one of the patriarchates of the Orthodox Church. There's the ecumenical patriarch in Constantinople, then there's Antioch and Alexandria and Jerusalem, and then there are others. The Russians have theirs in Moscow, etc. But of the ancient sees, S-E-E-S, they're all Greek Orthodox. The one in Jerusalem has to be approved by the Prime Minister of Israel. Why does Benjamin Netanyahu get to choose who my religious leader is?
Absurd.
It's absurd.
He's not even a member of that religion.
No, just as absurd as it is for the Chinese to decide who the Dalai Lama is going to be.
So, yeah, I mean, but of course, in this case, isn't it kind of objectively, they both kind of have stupid positions, right? I mean, the Dalai Lama's position, from what I understand, is mistaken, right? The Dalai Lama is supposed to, when he is reincarnated, that could be anyone and anywhere, right? I mean, that it's complicated, and and basically, my understanding is that Tibetan scholars and high-ranking officials are supposed to sort of suss out, and basically they wait after the Dalai Lama dies, and they okay, he's gone, and then they're like, okay, well, we're waiting for a report to see when someone possible candidate. Oh, I think my son is maybe the Dalai Lama reincarnated. Okay, let's go talk to him and see if he manifest some of the traditional signs supposedly have been like acuity they speak Tibetan, even though they're not necessarily from Tibet and stuff like that.
Yes, indeed. Exactly.
So, wow. Okay.
I don't even know what that is.
I'm putting that on there. I would kill for an episode with John under the influence of scopolamine. Would make for a podcast of the century. Yeah, that's there's that. I don't know what that is either. There's that Drunk History show. You ever seen that?
No, I've heard about that though.
It's really disappointing, John. I mean, so I had this idea years ago, and I still would do this, of getting a bunch of political cartoonists, but it could be anyone, just drunk and talk about the issues of the day, like we're doing now, but over beers. And things would get rambunctious, and maybe you could have it in a different bar, a historical bar in cities across the country. But Drunk History is basically one person drinks, and they basically are telling you about, say, the War of the Roses or whatever, and they're just having trouble reading it. That's about it. It's not much of a joke, really.
Ted, listen to this. Scopolamine, also known as devil's breath, is a classical muscarinic cholinergic antagonist that exerts multiple CNS effects belonging to a group of deliriant hallucinogens. It induces delirium-like hallucinations, hyperactivity, altered affective states, and amnesia, but it is also used to treat motion sickness and post-operative nausea and vomiting.
You know what? I think post-op, I'm going to go in a different direction, maybe whiskey. I don't want anything that I don't need anything. I'm already crazy enough. I don't need to fry my brain.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. All right. Do we want to move on here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gallup poll finds 58% of Americans are still proud to be American. It's a majority, but it was 67% just last year. It used to be a lot higher. It was up in the 80s and 90s for years after year.
Yeah.
As you'd expect, most of the drop now is from partisan Democrats. They're like obviously displeased with the direction of the country under Donald Trump. My question is actually more serious, John. Should we be proud of just having the happenstance of being born into a random country? Like, should people from Eritrea be less proud of being Eritrean than Americans are of being? I mean, I didn't choose to be born here. I was just born here. It's not. Yeah. I mean, I like America because I'm used to it. I think I know a lot more about it than I know about other countries. But you know what I mean? Isn't the proud thing sort of strange?
The proud thing is strange. Other countries' citizens don't even have this conversation. It's never an issue for them if they're proud or not. It's irrelevant if they're proud. But we have an unusual sense of nationalism in this country. My ex and I always had au pairs come and live with us for 15 years. And they were from a whole bunch of different countries, mostly European countries. And they were always amazed at how we have flags everywhere. We have especially gigantic flags at car dealerships, and everybody jumps up when the national anthem starts playing. Like, who even plays the national anthem in other countries? They never play the national anthem.
No.
They never do.
Like before soccer matches?
Never. No. And they're amazed by it. It's like this weird cultural thing that's specific to Americans. We're the only ones that even ask if we're proud to be American.
The only other place I can think of that I've been to that does that, like, I don't know if they still do, but when I went to the movies in Thailand, there's a short before the movies. Every movie I went to see, it was hot, so I went to the movies a lot to get air conditioning.
Right.
There was a short of the king doing good things, helping the poor, whatever, and they'd play the Thai national anthem. That's the only other country that I can think of.
The Greek national anthem is played on Greek Independence Day, and that's pretty much it. That's it.
And by the way, it's funny about our nationalism, right? Objectively, if you look at, say, other national anthems, ours isn't that great. That's why nobody can sing it. It's hard to sing. Exactly. That's why professional singers fuck up all the time and embarrass themselves. It's not really a well-written song. It's about one particular battle. It's not really very evocative. It makes the War of 1812. It's not, whereas like the French national anthem has our asses kicked, about like swimming in the blood of the ruling classes. Gotta love that. And it's, dun, 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 dun. I mean, even the Beatles did it.
They did. The Greek national anthem is a poem. It's quite a long poem.
Is it any good?
It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, great.
Absolutely beautiful.
But
it's just.
But I'm just saying that we need a revamp. We need a new national anthem. We need a better flag. Our flag is terrible.
Land is your land should be our national anthem.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, totally.
That's the image we should want to project.
We need better looking money. We used to have good looking money.
Yes.
We need better looking military uniforms. Our uniforms look horrible. I mean, compare that, like, when you see like the Italian like national police, they're outfitted by Prada. They look fucking awesome.
Oh,
it's like, because they're like, we're Italian. The French used to look great. Now they're all like bulky with like the steroids and all that. It's really too bad. They used to be sharp and they looked, I was like, that guy, if I ran away, he could probably catch me. I don't think that's true about any American law enforcement officer.
No.
At 61, I can get away from your fat 22-year-old ass. No problem.
Ted, I drove back to my hometown one time, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It was late on a Friday, so I got there around 10 or 10:30 at night, and I was passing through the downtown, and one of the very, very few things that's open in the downtown after dark is a Dunkin' Donuts. And I was stopped at a light, and I saw this 300-pound cop with his butt cheeks hanging off the two sides of the stool, eating a donut. And I said out loud to myself, like, no way. I actually put my car in park. I got out and I took a picture of him with my phone. Oh my God.
I don't like to bring this subject up in the context of humor and making fun of cops, but I'm a tasteless dude. I'm a political cartoonist. So do you remember there was a notorious police murder of a young black man, I think in Tennessee, where it was a traffic stop. He ran and they chased him and then they killed him. And the thing is, though, but if you look at the body camera footage, you hear these guys like, I'm like, the cops are going to die right there and they literally have to stop several times, like, and I'm like, you're a cop, you can't catch that guy, you can't catch anyone. They drove to catch him. That's how they caught him.
Oh my God. That's why they always release the dogs. Let the dogs do the running. I'm not running back into that swamp.
Release the hounds.
I had a friend I worked with at the CIA. He had been a Detroit deputy sheriff for years and years. And he said one time they had a guy escape. And he ran into this like swampy area. And they said they just decided to wait. So they didn't chase him into the swamp. They just waited. They had, people around the swamp.
Sure.
Finally, a couple of hours later, he came out and he was crying and his entire body was covered in mosquito bites. They actually had to take him to the hospital for some Benadryl injections.
Yeah,
you
can get shock, right? That's that. You ever seen that show, Naked and Afraid? That reality show? And that happens a lot of times in the hotter climates in the jungles, and people are covered. Some people, like I'm one of those people, I get attacked by mosquitoes.
I am too.
And you get like welts all over. And if you have 300 insect bites, you can go into anaphylactic shock for sure. Yeah. No question.
Yep.
All right. So last, and I'm going to say possibly least, but most interesting, I think, the CIA book club. So John, you've written about this in the Cold War. Apparently there's a new book out. The CIA had many programs, many programs. And one of the smaller ones was to smuggle works of literature into Eastern Europe, particularly Poland under the Solidarity Movement, 1984, Brave New World, Cosmo magazine, Le Carré novels, no doubt many other things, books of poetry. And anyway, this is a kind of amusing episode.
It is. And you would be surprised at how much success the CIA had during the Cold War, just making the Soviets go crazy. One of the first things they did with the CIA book club, well, it wasn't one of the first, it was the first thing they did, was Dr. Zhivago. Okay? Dr. Zhivago came out in like 58 or 57, something like that. And a small publishing house in Italy had the rights to publish it in English. So it somehow came to the attention of somebody at the CIA, and they said, oh my God, what a masterpiece this is. Yeah. It's incredible. It's about the revolution in Russia, and it kind of failed to protect people. And Dr. Zhivago is an amazing guy, and Laura's an amazing woman, and blah, blah, blah. So they decided to print it in Russian, knowing that it was banned, of course, in Russia. So the issue is, how do you get it into Russia in numbers big enough to actually impact society? They couldn't figure it out. Well, it turned out that year there was an international book fair in Brussels. And so it was one of the very few events where Soviet citizens were allowed to leave the country to attend. If you wanted to go to Brussels and you had the money to go to Brussels, you were allowed an exit visa and you go to Brussels. Well, Russians were instructed to not go to the American booth. So the CIA worked with, get this, the Vatican Intelligence Service. The Vatican had this enormous tent, enormous pavilion at the book fair, and they had a back room And you just sort of had to wander back there on your own. And they had thousands of copies of Dr. Zhivago in Russian, but the covers were blank. So word quickly got around the Russians that this incredible book that everybody in the West is talking about is available at the Vatican pavilion. And they gave away every last copy. The KGB finally got onto it. And there were a couple of Russians who later told the media, well after the fall of the Soviet Union, that even KGB agents who were supposed to be the ones hunting for this book were actually asking people, hey, can you get me a copy? I want to check it out too. And they let all these copies go back into the Soviet Union. So that was the first time that the CIA had success. I mean, how do you measure something like that? It was just to expose Soviet citizens to this anti-revolutionary Western thought. But it was the first time that it worked. And then, as you said, later on, it was 1984, and it was Animal Farm, and it was Cosmo Magazine, and all different kinds of things made their way into the Soviet Union. They just couldn't keep it out.
My favorite detail that I've read in the book review in the today's New York Times, or a couple days ago, I should say, was that, and I like this, they didn't just look for stuff that was brazenly anti-socialist.
Right.
They were just like, we're just going to send in stuff that just to a wide variety of material.
Expose American culture.
I think we talked a little bit about this recently. I think any country that the U.S. tries to isolate culturally, diplomatically, economically, like it does with sanctions against Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, the list goes on and on. It's far more effective if you're trying to corrupt them and get them to, be open to our way of life, whatever our way of life is, to make things open and have cultural exchanges. We make really great TV shows, really great movies, really great music, really great books. And
there's a famous story about riots in South Korea in the 1980s. The North Koreans took news footage of these South Korean riots and ran the footage on North Korean television. Nobody gave a shit about the riots. They were all saying, oh my God, look at the beautiful clothes they're wearing. Look at those big, beautiful cars that they have. Those gleaming skyscrapers. Oh my God. Which was exactly the opposite of what the North Korean government wanted them to be saying.
That's awesome. Yeah. The law of unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm.
That is great. All right. I think we can consider ourselves deprogrammed. I do like the idea of the, trying to smuggle in books. And but by the way, they also used balloons to send them in.
That never worked very well. They come down short of the target, or they run out of helium, and they land in the forest or in a lake. Mm-hmm. It wasn't possible. John Doe has a great idea here. John Kiriakou fact-checking the CIA podcast. Ted, we should do that sometime.
All right, let's do it. I didn't know the CIA had a podcast.
They just started it about 6 months ago. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, we will do that. All right, so then we have controversy over insect bites too. Even when the spider bite on an otherwise healthy person can lead to infection. Yeah. Maybe not that sepsis though. That's true. Gross. Spider bites can be really fucking nasty.
Awful. We were always warned when we were traveling in the Middle East about camel spiders. They'll kill you. There was
they're huge, right?
Yeah, there was a guy at the American Embassy in Cairo. When I was in Cairo, he was one of the Marines, one of the Marine guards that mans the booth at the front of the embassy. And the Marines had their own softball league, and he was out in the desert playing softball with these guys. And he laid down on a bunch of wood that was there, just kind of laying down in the sun. And a camel spider was in the wood, and it bit him in the leg, and he actually lost his leg. Oh, these things are nasty.
And I assume he got very rapid medical attention.
Quick medical attention. In fact, they treated him there in Cairo, but he got so sick so fast, they had to medevac him to Switzerland, and then they took his leg off. Yeah.
That calls me back to the Theodore Roosevelt trip through the Amazon, where one of the guys in his party was victimized by the sort of semi-mythical candiru fish.
Right.
So the candiru fish, there's controversy over whether this is true or not, right? But the lore, and this supposedly did happen on this trip, is that if you peed in a stream where the candiru fish was, it would follow the urine stream up into the urethra.
What?
And then lodge itself inside the urethra. And as if that's not insulting enough, you will die because you're no longer able to urinate.
Yeah.
And so apparently you only have about 15 to 20 minutes to take action before that happens. And the action that's required is the penis must be amputated. So the guy, according to the logs from the expedition in the Amazon basin, and there's a book about this, The River of Doubt, great book. Anyway, the guy was screaming, like basically, cut it off, hurry up, cut it off. Can you imagine? Like,
oh my God.
I don't know if I want to, man. It's like, no, you have to.
Oh, absolutely awful. Oh my God.
All right. So with that, I'm completely deprogrammed. All right. We will be back. Are we doing it on, I'm free Saturday.
Yeah,
You're free
Saturday. Yep, we're on.
All right. Saturday, July 5th, 12 noon Eastern time. We will be back here, and we will, unless that changes, we will let you know online. But that is the current plan. We're deprogrammed. Thank you so much. I'm Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou. Don't forget to follow, like, and share, and subscribe, and all that stuff that we need you to do online. Appreciate it. And take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.